Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from whichever part of the world everyone is joining in. And thank you so much for joining in. We sincerely hope and wish that everyone is keeping safe and are all right. I thank Brand Equity for this session, this topic specifically, because it's of utmost importance for almost all of us who are in this industry and the challenge that possibly lies ahead of us. Basically, certain things that we hear that may happen in times to come. With that, I would like to invite Mr. Amit Rai, who's the head of media operations at Dekho, and Mr. Nitin from IndiGo. Thank you so much, Nitin and Amit. Thank you for joining us. Pleasure to have you guys on the panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Paras, for the good.
Thank you. Welcome so much. Thank you. For everyone's interest, identity resolution in a cookieless world, right? There are a lot of questions. There are a lot of basic level questions. Maybe some people will have questions around what is cookie and how does that work and so on. To questions like, okay, in case if tomorrow a cookie goes off, then what happens, right? To set the context, before I invite my panelists to share their views and point of views, and we have questionnaires with them. A quick round of, a couple of lines on what cookie is and how does it work. So when we talk about cookieless world, okay, let me set this clear. We are not doing away with cookie. Cookies are not going away. What is essentially going away is the so-called third-party cookie tracking, which is where the problem really lies. And then how do we address that, right? So the first party cookie, or in some cases, second party cookies still continue to exist and will possibly continue to exist. What is really going away is third party, and then how do we address that going forward? The second part is that the reason why we are addressing this today is possibly because Chrome has come out with saying that, we are going to probably do away with third party cookie tracking in a couple of years' time. And Chrome basically contributes to about 50 to 60% of the browser share and probably more, right? The Safaris of the world are anyways today not allowing third-party cookies to track anything. So it's not something that we are not going through. It's already in works. It's just that the impact of that has not really kind of dawned upon us, right? But because of market share of Chrome, that becomes a real challenge going forward for us, right? With that as a context, I would like to invite Mr. from Dekho to share his point of view on how does, as a publisher, you would look at third-party cooking going away and the challenge that publishers such as yours would face, and how do you plan to tackle that?
Thanks, Paras. So you have set the right context that what is cookie, and when we are saying cookieless environment, the third-party cookie is going away, not the first-party cookie. So what is cookie? Cookie is more or less a text in your browser, which is dropped by either the website you are reading from or by anybody. And so it works in two purposes. One is first-party cookie. It helps in a better user experience on a particular site. So if you are going on Dekho, you have a native language of Marathi, and you select a Marathi language. You select 2-3 cars, and after that, once the session is over, when you log in again, you want these preferences to remain there. Okay, so you want Marathi language to be still there. You have selected few cars. You want to see those cars as a preference over other cars. So that context is provided by the first party cookie, and this will remain because this is for the betterment of user experience. This will remain as it is. What is going to go away is a third party cookie as per Google in 2 years. And what is third party cookie? Just like first party cookie tracks tracks its performance on its own site. In third party cookie, it tracks user behavior across sites. So wherever you go, it tracks you, and at regular interval of time, it tells its parent who has set the cookie or who has created this cookie that this user is male, this user is female, this user has 30 years of age, this user prefers auto, prefers real estate, something like that. It gives a context to the advertiser, and the advertiser stores it somewhere. So I tell you the problem, how this cookieless environment is imagined, why it is a requirement of cookieless environment, and how this happens. I give you a typical scenario in which how the advertisement works. Take a particular site like Economic Times. since we are in the Economic Times conference, so let's take Economic Times example. Economic Times, I want to read a particular, or XYZ guy, users want to read a particular article on Economic Times. It goes to Economic Times, start reading the article. Economic Times says that a user has come to me, I want to monetize this because this usually users don't pay for the content. So let me monetize this. They have an ad placement and they reach out to Google. Why Google? Because most of the publishers work with Google for the ad serving part. It reaches to Google, says that give me ad. Google says, okay. Google also has a first party cookie who has identified this user. And since it is not a personal name, so it says that this user for me is 123. Let me ask the advertiser. So the whole ecosystem is like that. There is a publisher, with publisher, there is a aggregator, publisher aggregator, SSP. Then there is an advertiser. And with that, there is a tech partner, DSP. So there are four main partners in this ecosystem: publisher, SSP, DSP, advertiser. So Google, suppose is the ad server. It plays all the role, but it plays the role of SSP as well. It plays the role of SSP and says, goes to advertiser, says that give me ad. Advertiser has a partner who is a tech pro, who is called DSP. And suppose in this case, there is the biggest DSP, one of the biggest DSP, Trade Desk is there. So Google reaches out to Trade Desk, give me ad. For this guy, for me, this guy is 123. There's a 50% probability that this advertiser also recognizes you and says that for you, this is 123, for me, this is 456. And from my database, I know that this guy is a auto enthusiast. This guy is a real estate enthusiast. This guy is somehow male and in 30 to 35 years age bracket. I have a very good advertisement related to real estate and that pays around $1 CPM. Take this ad. Google says, okay, that's fine. And this is, I'm telling you simple, in a simple way. There are not many complexity in this. Google says that, Trade Desk says that take this ad. Google says that, okay, take this ad, give it to Economic Times. Economic Times deliver this ad and got a $1 CPM. And Economic Times monetized, suppose 60 cents out of this dollar, and 20 cents is taken by the Google for facilitating this service. 20 cents is taken by the Trade Desk for facilitating this service. Everybody is happy. People got paid. Where is the problem? Problem is that this user who got served ad related to, suppose, real estate is after certain times see that how somebody knows that I am interested in real estate, how somebody knows that I am interested in, I am male, and what all this guy knows, and who all knows about me, and do I have a control over this or not? And most of the time the answers are no, you don't have a control over that, because cookie is just an ID. It has sent all the data to advertiser. Advertiser has kept it at a server. Only control which you have is that just delete the cookie and everything get refreshed. So if you had a preference that somebody knows 100 things about me and I want to remove 50 things, that is not possible. Either it goes away everything or all the things remains. And who all knows about you, that also cannot be tracked. That one way is that go into browser, check how many cookies are there, and everybody knows something about you. There the problem is user is very concerned, disturbed that how somebody knows something about me, and can I have a control? And over a time, in last 20 years, they have been exploited, they have been utilized, they have been monetized, and now they want to have more and more control. That's why from last 2-3 years, we have this discussion of having a cookieless environment. Now, suppose I say that your wish is granted, 3P cookie is gone. What happens? The problem is that as of now, we are not in that state that we can directly remove 3P cookie and remain in the same kind of environment. As soon as the third-party cookie is gone, the first thing is that no advertiser will be knowing anything about the user. Therefore, they will stop doing advertisement. They don't want to do a hit and trial. They are habitual of having a perfect targeted audience advertising. And as soon as this goes away, this part of monetization goes away. So advertiser will stop paying money, and publishers who bring the free content to you, very valuable free content to you from all over the world, will say that this was the basic level of monetization for me. Now what? So publishers will start vanishing away. They will get to start impacted. Second thing, there are a lot many ad tech companies apart from Google and Facebook whose sole proposition is based on 3P cookie. Over a time, they have created a huge database for every user that who this guy is. and in a non-PII way, non-personally identified way, but they knows as soon as 3P cookie is gone, their information is junk. Now it cannot be used in any place. So all these ad tech companies will start losing money. One of the example is that as soon as Safari has taken this step of removing the third-party cookie, Criteo, one of the pioneers in this field of retargeting, has suffered a share price loss of around 20%. And this can be more, but as of now, everybody is saying that since Google's main business model is based on advertising only, they will not take a drastic step. Something will come before this 3P cookie is gone. So this is more or less the context. What is cookie? Why it is required? What it does? And if today it is gone, what the impact will be?
Thank you, Amit, for that specific insight. That's been quite interesting to hear and insightful. Thank you so much for that. With that, I would like to also get in Nitin's perspective on how a marketer would look at cookie going away, and what are their needs and requirements from a technology platform, and also from users. How does that is been envisioned from a marketer's point of view? Maybe if you can share some insights on those.
So Paris, first of all, thank you. Thanks for giving opportunity, and really thanks to Amit to put the canvas and perspective in a very right axis. So I start with the site uses cookies except to continue, right? What if I don't accept? So as business, as brand identities, we have to take more responsible ownership in terms of if the user is not giving a right consent, then what if? Most of the brands right now have a registered framework. So if you don't register, if you're not a member, there are some part of functionality will not be accessible. So the guest user phenomena is what is required after the third party cookie go away. So for me as a user, the first party cookie works because that gives me personalization and the right recommendation based on my behavior and all the relevant updated information. But I still have my doubts on the second party cookies also, right? Because users are coming for content, not to get bombarded with irrelevant ads and offers. And when I say irrelevant, I mean it because I wear a shoe size 8 and I am not interested in a shoe size 6 or shoe size 10, right? So it's targeting, tracking, and measurement. So brands do all this. And for users, it's very, very meaningful because I'm the owner of my data, not the brand. Brand facilitates, right? Its technology is the enabler. Right now, we are not doing the responsible decision making, right? That needs to come into the picture. So at IndiGo, we from last 2.5 years, we don't have any third-party cookies. And I'm very proud of that. We have achieved that, right? Also, the second-party cookies play is with very selective partners. And that too, very intent-driven and consent-driven. So if you have a consent from a user, if as a user, I'm interested in insurance offers or I'm interested in bank offers, then only send the communication, otherwise I don't. Also, I measure that how the users are actually behaving, whether they are opening, they are clicking. So based on the CTRs and the funnels, I analyze and we reduce. So the idea is not to spam the users, respect their privacy. And that's what I'm saying. So that inner circle, that is my personal information and my privacy. That's more meaningful, right? And right. Publication and aggregators will face challenge if the third party cookie will go away. Like Amit said, it's going to be very challenging because the whole ecosystem needs to shift, right? Not all the players, the small players, the SMEs and small startups, they don't have infrastructure to create the big data lakes or the customer master what we have created at IndiGo. Very few brands have done that. And one fit for all will never work, right?
Right. So yeah. So what I gather is, I think from a marketer's point of view, with third-party cookies going away, I think what's going to be most important, which you've proudly achieved at IndiGo as well, is to not be dependent only on third-party and in a way create an environment which gives personalized touch to every communication that goes out from IndiGo to its customers. Be it a food preference or seat preference or a timing preference and so on, right? So that's an interesting one, right? So as far as ID resolution is concerned, I think what you've essentially achieved is in a way still reaching out to consumers without a third-party enrichment that's happening on a consumer or an individual PII level. But still continue to improve on the personalized touch that you the way you communicate with your consumers and so on. So that's an interesting one, right? So if
Bharat, I'm so sorry I'm interrupting. I have a point here, right? So it's striking meaningful conversations.
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
So if I have a location data enabled from Google or Uber or my active partners, I utilize it, but I don't bombard. I try and form a meaningful, the user journeys as per the persona, as per the use case. And that's very important for the brands to understand this. It's not like you send the one communication to everybody. Many times it's required. For example, we've launched 60 rewards as a co-branded card. We've sent it to all user base, but we may send a network connectivity option of Mumbai connects to these many locations. We don't send that to all user base, right? We don't retarget the same communication on social media just blindly, right?
Correct.
And that's what it takes. So
sure. So it's essentially a people-based marketing approach where it's not a blind let's reach out to everybody and see what happens. It's very meaningful. It's very personalized. It's relevant for that moment, right? So maybe a people-based marketing is one approach that that a marketer can look at in terms of how it needs to be done going forward when we have lesser access to third-party cookies. That would also possibly mean better tie-ups with other data providers. So like you mentioned about Google Maps or Uber, right? So maybe a second-party ecosystem possibly may flourish where it's more of one-on-one conversation with two entities and how the data exchange may possibly happen between each one of them, right? So that's an interesting point of view. Thank you so much for that. Having said that, right, I would go back to Amit on this, is because while all these things are happening, right, in terms of people-based marketing and so on, which is a comparatively easy way to kind of put things together because there are tools and systems available. The real challenge would lie with publications where the primary source of revenue is advertising, right? Like you mentioned about third-party cookie going away. How do you personalize? What do you do with it? What are the tech challenges that you see specifically when it comes to ad serving? Just to give you the context, right? You have a SSP in place. You have a DSP in place, right? So the heavy lifting of identifying the users or allowing you to target specific set of users or allowing those specific segments to be targeted from a publisher side will anyways be available from a SSP side, right? In an environment like this, what are the challenges that you foresee which will possibly have an impact on the business or the way you operate today?
So first thing is that the two business models. So as of now, IndiGo has an offline business as well as an online business. So online business is just an enabler. Offline business is the money-making part. Okay. So therefore, the requirement is different, and the first part is really, really important here. Okay. So therefore, but typically a publisher whose whole and soul, bread and butter is online business model. Okay. For them, advertisement is important. So there are so first thing is that they can enable. So most of the publishers have created their own first party DMP. They have tried to create over a time first party DMP. But the thing is that this information about a user, if I say that I have enabled this SUV only buyers on my platform, will the advertiser believe that? Because if a third party data or targeting is provided by a specialized company like Criteo, they believe it. But if a publisher says that I have enabled only this targeted audience, they don't believe it. So first thing is that I cannot, my first party data cannot replace the third party data. So there are big names in the publishing industry. What they can do is that over a time, what everybody can do is that publisher over a time, and even publishers have data in silos. So I have online data, okay? and cookie, one first party cookie data. But apart from this data, I have more data sources at different places. If I can merge all those data, so I am, as of now, publishers are not thinking in that way. Monetization ho raha hai, chal raha hai, so everything is good, things are okay. But as of now, as soon as these things go away, it is really, really required that publisher merges all this data and make their first party cookie as a super cookie, this which knows each and every information. And big brands in the publishing name can make advertisers to say that, believe me, and these are proper, mature audience I have created, and you can believe that, and you can see the result. First thing is that. Second thing is that sometimes publisher doesn't have a bandwidth to do all this thing. Okay, so there are partners in the market which are called data onboarding partners, which is going to become a very big trend in the coming days. They help you in organizing your data in a proper way. And they help you in making a consent management platform. So what the future is going to be? Future is going to be that I merge all my data. I make this deterministic. Deterministic means I am not getting signals from user that maybe this is male, maybe this is 35 years, maybe something. I am connecting a real life thing with that phone number, email ID, something like that with this identity. Okay. And I am creating a comprehensive super first party cookie, and I am making this biddable by transferring it into a centralized platform. So if today I want, if a central database of everybody gets created with a hashed email ID as a primary key. Hashed email ID means encrypted email ID in which everybody can map it. Okay, X says that whether you have this email ID, this guy can say that yes, I have this email ID, but nobody knows that what that email ID is. So encrypted email IDs can be mapped. So what everybody is trying that enrich your data, bring at a central place, and through a tech partner, through an onboarding partner, make this move to as a biddable data for advertisers. What the ideal scenario is, if I am going to read the Economic Times has centralized all the data, first party data, and he has taken the help of suppose LiveRamp, and LiveRamp is a company which helps in data onboarding. It brings a central database of all the publishers enriching a particular set of IDs. Now it has everybody in the world having their ID there. And an ad request goes from my platform, suppose Economic Times, with an ID, which is given by this central database, suppose XYZ, and go to advertiser. Advertiser says that who this XYZ? Again, he hits the central database, and XYZ in the central database, it tells that XYZ is an auto enthusiast, real estate guy, and maybe a male. And based on that, it gives away the advertisement. So what has happened? Data which is as of now with advertiser goes to a central secure place, and this repository helps everybody in advertising. Okay, right. So this is what we want, and this is the way towards which publishers are going to.
So it's essentially what you're saying is that once the third-party cookie, the relevance of it or the availability of it kind of reduces, the ecosystem possibly will need to move towards some sort of a unified or a universal ID that we popularly refer to as whether it's at a publisher level or at industry level. That's another solution where the system or the ecosystem overall need to move towards to ensure that every information that's been collected from the audience is with users' consent. And referring back to the conversation that I was hearing from the previous panel, that there's a possibility that users will have to explicitly mention that you can use my information for advertising and within possibly advertising for this kind of communication and not this kind of communication and so on. So the power really goes back to the user, unlike what we have today in the name of GDPR or CCPA, or maybe at India level, maybe whenever anything around Sri Krishna Commission when it rolls out. So it's not a blanket that you either opt in or you opt out, right? If you're opting out, you will have an option to say you're opting out for these kind of services. If you're opting in, you will have a possibility of kind of, opting in for certain kind of services and so on and so forth. So that's a good thing. So the power really kind of goes back to the consumer to say, hey, I'm not interested in certain kind of communication. Don't bother, right? But if I'm in the market to, let's say, buy a four-wheeler, I would not mind, getting communication from Dekho, right? And vice versa, right? So So people-based marketing and universal ID-based approach are the two ways in which possibly the industry might move towards, or those are the areas where the industry might explore and adopt to, right? In this whole entire piece, right, what's interesting is that, and let's not shy away, we have our wall gardens. They are good, they are our friends, and we work with them as and when the need arises, right? The role of these wall gardens per se, which are large enough in size vis-a-vis the rest of the platforms, right? So I wouldn't name them, but all of us know about them, right? How does that differentiation happen, right? And from a marketer's point of view, Nitin, right? How would you probably look at this? Because if a cookie is available and it's available in an environment, how do you plan to, or what are the possibilities in which it can be extended to different platforms, right? On a non-PII manner, so that it's your communication from the advertising point of view is still relevant and not just bombarding with random messages.
It's a very, very interesting question, Paras. So I believe in the 5P framework, right? So
Sure.
It's people, product, process, perspective, and then profit.
Right.
And that's very, very important for the brands to understand, right? And it starts with that privacy, because it's users' privacy. Once you use an integrated marketing cloud, whether it's Adobe, whether it's Google, a lot of things are available, and most of things are integrated. So you don't need to share your data with a second party, third party, and with the solid legal contracts, you ultimately as a brand, you own the data. But this is not one fit for all, not available for most of the brands. And that's where the ecosystem needs to get evolved and learning needs to happen, right? So we have to respect the personal space. It has to be consistent, trustworthy experiences. And of course, we have to differentiate between good and bad cookies. And good and bad cookies, it may be good cookie for a particular line of business and the category, but behaves very different and in a different manner for a different user in the other line of the businesses.
True.
But if you as a user interact with me, then it's my responsibility that I don't share your data with if I have any collaboration without your consent. And that's a responsible way of doing business. And brands need to do it. It's not 0 and 1. It's not right or wrong, but we have to get there.
True.
Right. Also, some of the questions which people are, asking. One is that, screens are changing, right? So I'm watching TV, but at the same time, I'm looking for something on mobile, maybe a relevant content, maybe doing something, maybe sharing, right? That dual screen, triple screen experience, that is still not been achieved. And I think that even for IndiGo, it's going to take time, but we are on the right path, right? So if you use the Hindi language on my app and you come back to my website, I still show you the English platform, right? That evolution still needs to happen, right?
Correct.
So there are things which brands have achieved, and there are things which brand needs to do better. And cookies enables that, right? Preferences enables that.
Right.
But there is very thin line. I can't change the language to Hindi for all my Patna customers.
Correct.
In lockdown, many migrants have started going to Patna. That was the hot sector for us. And we tried sending some message in Hindi and tried sending some message in English. But that was a trial. But we can't force fit the language preference for user permanently.
That's an important point that you're making, right? Once cookie goes away, people are going to look at alternate solutions, alternate ways to interact with the consumer. And in this case, maybe geo or a sector, right, is one way, saying that in case if you're traveling to Patna, it is assumed that you know certain things, which may or may not be true. And
absolutely. So digital identity and digital fingerprint is essential. And most
absolutely.
of the big brands need to take a lead on this to invest in this technology. It's looking ahead, right? It doesn't exist. It doesn't get practiced across, but that's where we need to be there, right? With the whole voice, video, and vernacular, the 3 V's, I think we will be there. And cookies enable us to craft better experiences.
So it's in a way taking DCO, dynamic content optimization, that we generally talk about in terms of delivering the ad using the same concept, but in a more meaningful, in a more consent manner, so that over a period, brands build trust with their consumers.
Yeah.
Right? So their information. So trust is an important factor, right? Once cookies go away, the only way forward is users have to really put in their email ID or phone number to access content from, let's say ET, for example, right? They want to be double sure that ET is not sending them messages every now and then. They are sending messages only when they think it's a good time. And when I say they, I mean the consumers, right? So that trust building is an extremely important exercise beyond just putting the IDs together, or whether it is in the form of personalized marketing or universal ID.
So Paras, you are actually, it's music to my ears. So imagine you are visiting a car shop, right? Let's say Mahindra Thar has launched a product. Now you find it interesting. You are a biker. You visited Mahindra Thar. You entered the showroom, taken a trial, and Mahindra Thar guy will do a shadowing with a one guy. On physical experience doesn't happen. In digital, which we do, we put a cookie and say, okay, this is guy interested. The guy is only after you. You go to a jewelry shop, you go to a shirt shop, you go to all these omni-channel experiences. People don't put a lead, and there is no trace like that.
Right.
There is a hint. If you share the information, brands will call you. You will also tell that, okay, 3 months, 6 months. So that omni-channel experience needs to come into the digital world also.
Correct.
Right? And that's where privacy. So imagine you are taking a walk and 5 guys where you visited are, trailing you. The whole world will know. And that is what is happening on digital, right? We say, okay, this guy, so now Mercedes guy is also interested. Honda is also interested. You know that Govardhan Puja is coming. So some Kalyan jeweler is saying, well, buy the jewelry. How is that possible? How intuitive is that? With cookies, what we are saying that 10 guys speaking at the same time, it's absolutely not required.
Right.
Not essential.
Interesting one. It's absolutely right. It's crazy. Like, I mean, no offense to airline industry, but many a times if I'm searching for a sector, I get, followed by, hey, you know what, for months together, right? You know what, travel this. Yeah. I've already done I'm done with it, right? Don't follow me anymore.
You also need to say that when we say that upgrade the data, update the preferences, we need to understand that most of the decision making is going to happen in a week or month's time. After a month, stop it.
Correct.
Right? Correct. That's why I'm saying that you have to respect the privacy. Absolutely. You were searching for Delhi Mumbai sector once, but you are based in Ahmedabad. I can't keep sending you low fare alert for Delhi Mumbai continuously.
Right. True. No, that's true. So in a way, a responsible consumer interaction from brand, which eventually will result in better trust, and hence, brands will have more information about the consumer, their likes, dislikes, and so on, and a better conversation with the consumer. That's the way I put forward, right? In the same breath, right, with Amit, in cases where I don't know how many people today would really be interested in putting their email IDs or phone numbers for consuming news or consuming, if I'm on Car Dekho, right, and I'm searching between Honda City and a Maruti Baleno and some other same segment vehicles, I'm not sure if I would be really putting in my email ID or phone number so that you can interact with me, right? So maybe newer ways to interact with the consumer from the publisher point of view will probably need to evolve so that the whole thing about universal ID kind of comes together, right? Maybe at industry level or maybe at individual publisher level, or if you have a bunch of websites as part of one company, that coming together to say that, hey, you know what, we are going to communicate with you, but only basis your consent. So it's honestly, it's not just about technology or means in which we are going to communicate with our consumers in future. End of the day, we are also consumers, and we don't really like if somebody is really bombarding us with messages every now and then, right? It's also about these software things like how are we going to use this technology, or going forward, how are we going to build the trust to be able to interact better, right? In that sense, what are your point of views? How do you see that kind of shaping up for a publisher, right, such as yours?
So I have been part of few of the firms, and absolutely right that on news platform, typically somebody avoids logging in because what he's going to get after logging in, and why he should be telling Economic Times, or why he should be telling News 18 or Indian Express that what my login ID is. As soon as you start prompting that login, he tries to go away. That if he is getting free content, if he is getting without putting any credentials, it's okay. But as soon as you force him, the user goes away, and there the problem is that you want your privacy, and if you give me your login ID, I can target you better, serve you better content, and maybe even if the third-party cookie is gone, I will try to create a private environment for you, or make your user preference proper. But comparatively, in Dekho, there is an incentive to give your login or give your user ID or give your phone numbers, because you want to know more about the car. Because it is more like a near to e-commerce platform in which user is supposed to give some details to get some information. Okay, so some platforms in the world do have an advantage in getting a proper detail from user, and some users will get some platform will get a disadvantage. So the problem, the solution here will be the good consent management platform, which are working in European countries where the GDPR exists. Okay, they try to inform customers in a very good way that what all your data is going to be used to, and users, whether they bother to read those things or not, but they have created these kind of platforms. And this is very essential for future where the cookieless environment we are counting on. Because, so until unless you have a login, until unless there is a phone number or email ID, I cannot create a centralized deterministic ID of you. And it will remain probabilistic. And as Nitin said, even after months, you have traveled to Patna, you will keep getting bombarded with something related to different flight in which you are actually not interested. So it is in your benefit that you give a login data, and it is publisher's responsibility, duty to keep it very private, very secure, and associate with only the tech partners who work on the same theme in keeping it private and never making it public. And whatever data he makes, it cannot be reverse engineered to make it a PII. So this is my thing.
Great. So essentially, end of the day, all of us in the ecosystem really have to work hard to ensure we really build that connection, that trust with our consumer, regardless whatever technology or tech stack that we may end up using, right? That's a quick takeaway, right? And the way to go about doing is to do people-based marketing and whatever things that are required for us to be able to get to that level. Or have a universal ID kind of a system which allows us to still continue doing our work in a more meaningful manner. We have about 10 odd minutes left, and we have quite a few interesting questions coming our way, right? So I'm going to quickly go through each one of them. We will try and go through each one of them to everyone who's put on the questions. In case if you are unable to answer, please mail your questions to ET and we'll try and respond to them as soon as we can, right? So the first question is, with third-party cooking going away, are we seeing new cascade effect on AI? That's an interesting one. I will take that. Will AI play an important role going forward? With or without cookie? Answer is yes, right? And I'll give you a quick example of that. Imagine you are a brand who is selling diapers, for example, right? Now, with every passing day, every passing month, the requirement for the size of the diaper keeps changing. And if I've given my email ID or phone number to you as a brand owner, right, I would expect you to communicate saying that, hey, maybe your kid is now 3 months, so the size required would be this, right? And not just have same communication going on every time saying that buy a small size diaper for next 1 year or so, right? So that kind of intelligence, the system needs to understand that with every passing day, the things are evolving, recency of data availability and so on and so forth. Or some other signals which are not cookie dependent will need to play a larger role in ensuring that the way we communicate with the consumers is a little more meaningful, right? So the play of AI is going to be important. The next one is, in Amit's example, how is match rate made between Google's 1, 2, 3 and advertisers 4, 5, 6? That's an easy one. I will, sorry, Amit, I will take that because we're short of time. There are onboarders available. There is a concept of data mapping that happens. If you work with any of the DMPs, you'd probably encounter this, that, when you, let's say, for example, you have a DMP through which you need to push your segments to a DSP, right? So the constant mapping of a DSP ID with a DMP ID needs to happen, right? Only then that cookie can be made available, that information can be made available for activation purpose, right? So that process is a backend process which anyways happens in the background, and that is how it will possibly continue to happen even with first party and second party. How soon should publishers start evaluating universal ID solution to mitigate the risk from third party cookie demise? As soon as possible. Simple. There are quite a few questions which are very operational, and for the interest of time, I'll kind of skip on that. But there's one question to Nitin. It's a good thought of making segments basis attributes and activities to target users. Have you been able to personalize all your assets to target your users? If I am on the website, same experience on app. I think Nitin has tried addressing that, right? Multi-screen experience. So yes.
So to some extent, yes, not the whole user journeys. We are on the right path to achieve, the best possible desirable solution. Half is there, half still needs to happen.
Sure. Question to Amit. How about creating a CDP to marry offline and online data, identify top revenue customers, and marry MarTech and AdTech to target lookalikes? So lookalikes users who have potential to contribute similar to you, top revenue users. How about, so the question is, how about marrying multiple platforms which are already available, the likes of MarTechs and AdTechs and onboarders and every other place from where we can gather the user information, and how about putting all of them together? I think it's a good thought. What's your take on that, Amit?
That's what is going to be the future. Okay, so the thing is that I have a certain attribute of a personality. Suppose about Paras, you. I have a certain impression based on how you browse my site. Okay, suppose I connect with a data onboarding partner, suppose LiveRamp again, and so there is a company LiveSite in India. So suppose I connect with them. They help me in making my data biddable. They create an ID. They connect all the attributes of a user to this. Now the second step will be that I know only a particular aspect because it's only a car Dekho data. How can I get more aspects? Okay, so suppose the same guy gets connected to IndiGo, the same guy gets connected to Times of India, Indian Express, and from that, a multiple dimension of a personality, multiple dimension of a persona of a particular user comes and get it enriched. That gives a user, or even if CDP is connected, so it's centralized user profile get made, and this is encrypted. Nobody can have this whole data hacked and copy this whole data. Whole thing is encrypted. There are multiple technologies to encrypt, SHA, to hash the whole thing.
Sure.
So
yes.
This is the future. This is the way we are going towards. And but the thing is that whether technically you can do it on your own or you need a third-party vendor who can enable each of these things is the question which should be asked for a particular corporate.
I think Nitin is smiling, so I think he's already on. They've already achieved that. So your point of view would be really.
So one thing, right? So the personal data protection bill, and it can be achieved with a government and private ecosystem partnership. What Amit is saying has a lot of merit because we as ecosystem don't have a unique identifier or that digital footprint yet. We need to be there because right now most of the brands either work on the retention and the reach or the transaction, these type of campaigns with the right segmentation. Sometimes with collaborative, sometimes with single thing, sometimes with blind track like affiliates. But ultimately the consumer is the guy who's suffering. Most of these platforms have taken and collaborated on the data without the consumer consent. And that's what we are questioning. Till the time there is no framework implemented, how can you achieve it? So till that time, it's brand responsibility, and it's brand responsibility to track meaningful user journeys when you are actually communicating with the user and offering, right? It can't be blindly done.
Correct. So it has two parts, right? The question has two parts. One, the use of technology, various technologies. Some of those technologies are already available. Having said that, to build more meaningful conversations and build trust in the consumer, the framework, like Nitin mentioned, has to be there either by the governing, by our government or the governing body who can say that, you know what, this is how you need to go about doing it. For example, IAB, who defines quite a few protocols in the way each of these platforms really work and the way they measure, impressions, clicks, and so on and so forth, right? So that's an important one that has to be there. So it's not just about one or the other technology. It's about creating that environment, creating that whole ecosystem so that all these things come together and work really effectively. One last question is to Nitin. As IndiGo is not using third-party cookies from last 2 years, I would like to ask Nitin that have you guys analyzed through your feedback mechanism the customer user experience involved in last 2 years?
Yeah, you need to have a very, very active listening, social listening, as well as the feedback mechanism. The value proposition needs to be very clear whenever you are, putting something new, whether it's a feature, product line, or a service. And you need to do a lot of A/B tests, get right validation, put on the ground. It has to be a very regular process. It can't be done in 6 months or a year's time. It has to be every month, every week, every day type of work.
Right. There is one question from Abhijit Kundar. Are Google's turtle, I don't know this product, but it says Turtledev or Critio's Sparrow mature enough today to resolve this or part of ecosystem questions we face today?
See, Critio is very good, but ultimately it's retargeting. Critio never takes user consent. That's my problem. No third party or a platform which says that I do this jazz. Nobody's taking user content. It's aggregated. It's just like getting all the offers from across thing and saying that I'm an aggregator or a platform. But you have zero consent from a user. Right.
Right.
One of the specific aspects of
I'm not making any money. You are selling my data.
So one of the specific names which he has taken, like a Sparrow, Critio Sparrow one, and so these are the concepts. This can take a good form. The thing is that Google is also working on a privacy sandbox. There is a very, very good chance that Trade Desk Unified ID becomes a universal thing. There is a very good chance that there are 250 million authenticated, verified, and real-world users already with the live ramp. And initial cases, success, there are initial success. There is a company, ID5, who's doing really good and totally free for user, totally free for publishers to start working towards this cookieless environment. So there are many solutions. There are many suggestions, like you said, Critio, Sparrow, and Google Turtledev. But the final, who will be winning? Who 3-4 guys will be the creating the unified ID solutions and will be accepted by all is yet to be seen. And there are still 2 years.
Excellent. I think we've run out of time, but this is an interesting topic, right? Any topic, and the kind of conversation that we've had and the kind of questions that we see over here, right? All of us are really excited. We really love our job, right? And that's the reason why we are debating, talking about this and the kind of questions that are popping up. So I really like this industry. It all bright minds coming together to try and talk about what possibly could happen, because eventually it's about ensuring the industry survives, right? And thrives, not just survives. So thank you so much, Nitin. Thank you so much, Amit, for your time. I've had a great fun chatting with you guys. The essence of this whole conversation is that there are many solutions available. There are many solutions that needs to be built, whether it's in the form of framework or it's in the form of actual text solutions. It has to be there. Otherwise, it's going to be a broken ecosystem in case if the third-party cookie goes away. For companies who have the means to go about investing in data lakes, they should definitely go about doing it like as of today. But for other kind of solutions, we still have to do a little wait and watch and keep a close eye on the happenings. People-based identity, universal identity are the two quick things that we can think about of moving forward. And I'll leave us with that as a thought and ways to work around on that. Thank you so much for your time. I really would like to thank Economic Times Brand Equity also to give us this opportunity to share our point of view on this. Thank you, everyone. You have a safe time ahead. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Paras. Thanks, Amit.
Thank you.